Good evening. In our last class, we have just started our block one, and I think we have covered almost 2 units. And from third unit, we have just covered the first pre-independence parts, how or what are the approaches of development during the pre-independence era. Okay, so in our third unit, as we have the different developmental approaches, it has been given for the tribal communities in India. So in pre-independence era, we have just covered the isolation approaches or the policy of isolation. Okay, so in that policy, just we have said that, or we have discussed that from the very beginning, the Britishers or the British administrator, they have tried to isolate this community from the mainstream society or mainstream caste system. Okay, and the basic purpose or the basic objectives of isolating them was just to keep them away from the ongoing political movements or political advancement, uh, for which indirectly or directly they will be benefited. The Britishers will be get benefit. Like there will be a deduction on the part called, as we said, that the strength of the Indian national politics. Okay, so a major part of the Indian society will be, they are not going to join the national movement for freedom. Okay, so that is the first purpose or the one of a purpose, to keep them isolate from the mainstream society. Okay, and second was that was the original purpose, or the purpose for which they have come to India, they have established colony in India. That was to maximize the benefit from those localities, the localities which were inhabited by the tribal communities of India. Okay, so as these areas or these geographical location, uh, they are rich with minerals. Okay, so if those areas will be kept aloof from the other society, then uh, there will be no disturbance when they are extracting or they are exploiting those resources. Okay, so that was the another reason for which they wanted to keep isolate those areas from the mainland or from the mainstream societies. Okay, and the reason given for the isolation was, they have proposed as like, for the smooth functioning of the administration, these communities should be isolated. This should be kept in isolation. Okay, and another reason was given that because they are different from the other communities, their society is different from the other communities. Okay, so by the connection or by the interaction with the other communities of India, they may lose their originality. Okay, there will be many changes which will be coming in their cultural life or in their social life, which should not be which will create a risk on their cultural or social life, or you can say the community itself will be at risk. So they wanted to keep them isolated. These are the certain reasons they are given for isolation. Okay, and as we have already discussed that because of these kind of isolations, uh, uh, as it was one of a kind of approach for development, the result of development or the fruit of development is it is not significant, it is not seen as much, not as much as significant. Okay, as they were secluded because of their geographical location, the in addition to that geographical location, the administrator or the British administrator, they have purposefully kept them in a isolation condition. Okay, so they are continuing uh, that segregation, or they are continuous still they are in that uh, inaccessible geographical location. How the development will reach to their society, or how that the different policy measures uh, which were planned for the mainstream society, it is not reaching to those region because of those isolation policy. Okay, so as that result you will see that uh, they were they were uninterrupted, or the enactment of the forest laws, like the in which was enacted in 1878, it has it has lead to a massive discontentment among the tribal communities, because as we know that from the very beginning this community are identified as the community who are uh, living their livelihood on the basis of pre-modern technologies. Okay, or you can say their livelihood, or their social or cultural and economic life, everything is revolving around the forest and land. Okay, so as we sit that there as we know that their cultural life, without forest we cannot imagine a tribal community's cultural life or social life. Like uh, the houses which are built, definitely they will collect the raw material from the forest. Okay, or the things which were goods or things they are using for the daily everyday life, or for the daily purpose, you will see they are all coming from the forest. For example, like utensils, or those are collected from the forest. It may be from the woods, or it may be a leaflets, any kind of thing, or roots, or any kind of fruit cells they are using. These all are coming from the forest. Okay, so their social, cultural, and the that we said that economic life, it is all revolving around the forest. So when the forest right, or the forest act in 1878 which was implemented, so it had tried to restricted that accessibility to forest. Okay, which is definitely which is resulting discontentment or dissatisfaction among the tribal communities. They are uh, they're restricted to use those forest land for their everyday life. Like they cannot meet their everyday life's purpose. Okay, for food, for the like we said the livelihood purpose, or for the social purpose, they're they're not capable to use or bring the resources or raw materials from the forest. So that has created a massive discontentment among the tribal community. And other criticisms, as we had have discussed that uh, it has mm, like we said that the purpose of britisher, it was to exploit those regions which are rich with the minerals. Okay, so definitely it has created a barren lands in those regions uh, which were isolated from the mainstream land. Okay, so no one is there to monitor how and in what amount those resources are being used. Okay, what is the level of exploitation on the land, on the resources, or on the community people? Okay, no one is there to monitor those kind of things. Okay, so uh, you can say they have literally barren the lands in a ecological manner, or you can say in a social way they have barren the land. It means in with the area where the mining was conducted, or any other kind of industrial project were going on, definitely you will see the displacement will be there. Okay, because of those tribal community, they have declared this those area as an isolated area. But if the reality is in check, you will not find the tribal communities in those area, because they have been already displaced. Okay, if the land or the forest and the water resources are not available to those tribal community, how they will be going to sustain? Okay, so definitely they have migrated to other areas, or they have been forcefully displaced from those areas. Okay, so those are being purposefully made barren. Okay, so that those area were not in a lively conditions, or not in the living conditions. Okay, so those are the certain you can say the negative consequences which has come because of that isolation approach of development, or policy of isolation. Okay, so as in last class we are also saying that Thakkar Papa's comment that uh, it is just another way to keep those tribal community in a museum, a glass museum, where other researchers will come and make some research on them. Okay, so there is literally there is no intervention for the development of their community. Okay, because they are kept in isolation. So just they are cut off from the mainstream land. There is literally no communication between the tribal community and the mainstream land. Okay, so that has created a gap between, or that the traditional gap, or the you can say uh, the gap which was present before the coming of those Britishers, that gap was broadening because of the isolation policy. Okay, so uh, going to next approach of development, that was the policy of assimilation. The criticism which we can find on the policy of isolation, it has led to another approach for development for those tribal community, that is they should be assimilated with the mainstream society. Okay, so the main advocate of this policy of assimilation was the Gure, G.S. Gure. Okay, so he has said that uh, like his opinion is like that. You will see uh, the traditional or the age-old relationship between the mainstream society and the or the caste society and the tribal community was very cordial, or there was some kind of relationship between that two communities, caste community and the tribal community, as he has said that they are the part of Hindu social structure. Okay, so how the caste structure was being designed, are the one of the part from that social stratification system. Okay, so definitely there was a connection, or there was an interaction between these two kind of society. Okay, that is the caste society and the tribal society. For example, we have seen that uh, in a village society, in a traditional village society, you will see there are many community which are present in there, who are the service providers. Okay, among those service providers, these tribal communities are also present. Okay, for example, we have used these tribal communities as the uh, agricultural laborers. They are permanently tagged as the agricultural labor. Some persons will be the landlords, and some persons will be the peasants, or who will take the land in a tenancy format, and they will employ, or they will hire these tribal communities as the agricultural laborers. Okay, so there is a traditional pattern of interaction between these two communities, between the mainstream community or the caste community and the tribal community. So that kind of interaction process was going on. Okay, and also you will see there are other services are there which were provided by the caste, which was provided by these tribal communities. Okay, so there was a some kind of relationship between this caste community and the tribal community. And another example was that because there was a some kind of instances that the tribal communities are present in the epic literature, so they are deriving that there was a relationship. Like in Ramayana we have mentioned them, we Mahabharata we have also mentioned them, or in Bible we have also mentioned them. Okay, so there was the instance where we can pick, yes, pick that the in the Vedic society also these communities were present, or there was a interaction because the these epic characters have interacted with those tribal communities. There are some characters which are very popular. Okay, so we are concluding that there was a some kind of relationship or some kind of interaction system or practice was there. Okay, so Gures argues that after Britishers they have come to India or they have made a colony in India, that kind of relationship was broken. Okay, as he criticized the policy of isolation that has made the relationship more more bitter, you can say. Okay, so it has cut down the uh, different sources or different threads on which those interaction process was going on. Okay, uh, okay, so those are certain kind of he has said that after the advent of Britishers and the policy implemented by those Britishers, they have even they have that society's condition life standards was they have got more worsen. Okay, so they have become more poor. Oh, okay, or they have gone back to the different decades. Okay, as the society or the civilization it is progressing, but the pace of movement of those tribal community was still at a stagnant position because of the Britishers law or law of isolation or the forest laws which they have implemented, or another kind of laws we were discussing, that is like the certain kind of taxation process, or the what was called that the uh, uh, land tax process, or how in the way they are depositing certain ways or certain amount of taxes on different kind of goods or different kind of services, for example land or agricultural taxes, anything they has to deposit, they have to deposit. Okay, so that had exploited the tribal communities in many ways because they are identified with certain kind of economic life. Okay, as we know that uh, in their economic system there is a there is not present of this monetary system, they are still in the barter economic system. Okay, and they are still in a subsistence economic system where they are producing something just to consume. Okay, not for the market. Okay, and the surplus whichever has been come to their pockets or their production, that surplus has to be exchanged for another kind of demand or another kind of need. For example, if they demand or if they are in the need of other kind of grains or other kind of pulses, or any that is soil pots or the things which are used in agriculture, Okay, the aids which are used in tools or aids which are used in the agriculture, they have to uh, make exchange with their surplus production. Okay, so there was no, there was not a presence of that monetary system. Okay, so that kind of economic life was present in their community. And not in every day they will, those things or goods will be available to them. It is, we have definitely noticed that that concept. They have a weekly market or fortnight market they have. Okay, so in a particular that day, the things and goods will be exchanged. Okay, so and they don't have that much of surplus where they can sell to the market, and they can have a they can buy some other things. Okay, so mainly it was for the subsistence. Okay, for the consumption of their daily needs. Okay, so after the imposition of those kind of tax process, definitely it is a torturous process on them, from where they will get those amount. It may be of the money, or it may be the grains they have to pay. Okay, so definitely it is adding the more you can say burden on their economic life. They don't follow that kind of economic process where they can get more benefits, or they can produce more, they can have more surplus. Okay, so definitely they have to depend on the money lenders. Okay, again, who are from the non-stream non tribal society. Okay, they are from those mainstream society, so they have to depend on those money lenders. In addition to the britishers taxation process, money lenders, they are adding more burden or more exploitation to that community. Okay, so the condition of tribal community life, it is getting more worsen. So uh, somehow Gure's point on this is was right. Okay, and in the criticisms of isolation, we have also mentioned that the policy of forest policies which were implemented in 1878, that has made landlessness among the tribal communities. Okay, so tribal community, they were of after that implementation of after that act, they were getting landless. Or you can say the community land was purchased by the state or the britishers. Okay, they don't have the right about their community land. Maybe we are aware that this tribal community, they don't mm, they don't have that private ownership of land, but definitely they are communally owning the different patches of land. Okay, so after the implementation of that forest act in 1878, that community ownership was also taken away. Okay, so that has created another uh, difficult situation among the tribal life, as we have already discussed that how the not how the absent of that forest land, or the absent of that basic needs of livelihood sources, it is getting uh, a more difficult situation in that tribal community. Like uh, they have to search for other kind of job, because their land or their forest was snatched out by the state or the britishers. Okay, total livelihood system which was depend on the forest, they have to search for alternate from where they can get their livelihood. Okay, so gradually they are shifting to the more difficult areas, or more difficult situation, to have their daily needs, to meet their daily needs. Okay, for example, uh, from the traditional forest dwellers, the community who are depending on the forest for their livelihood, they have become as the industrial laborers, okay, or the laborers in the construction site. Okay, so because they don't have they don't have their traditional way of practicing their livelihood, or extracting their livelihood. Okay, they have to go to the other source of livelihood, that is the laboring, okay, in different areas that we have mentioned, that the forest, not in the agricultural land or in the construction site, or they are sometimes they have been that is called as the, as we have said, that kept as the bonded laborers in the different sites like bricklanes, or in the plantation site. We have seen that there are some tea trees are there. It was in in some studies it has shown that from this central India, this community, they have migrated to those areas as to work as the laborers in the plant tea gardens or the plantation sites. Okay, so gradually they have shifted their livelihood source from a forest based livelihood to the other livelihood sources. Okay, so as Gure was uh, saying that the condition of tribal community after the advent of this Britisher, it has got more worse. Okay, so he writes that he's on his in his book on his book the Aborigines, uh, which means, as we said, that mm, they are the part of Hindu culture. Okay, so the term or the tag which was made from them was the backward Hindus. Okay, they are not, their life standard, their cultural life are not at par with the mainstream a caste society's life. Yes, but they are the part of Hindu society. As we have earlier mentioned that in epic literature there are some instances, or in the traditional village life, they are the part of that traditional village lifestyle, okay, as the service providers in different economic sites, okay, in agricultural fields, or as the laborers to different site. Okay, so uh, they are they are considered as the part of Hindu society. Okay, so Gure has divided these tribal communities on the basis of the assimilation in uh, three categories. Okay, so first category is that those who have properly been integrated. Okay, as we have said that, seen that some of the community, they have totally shifted their livelihood uh, medium or mode to another livelihood mode. Okay, like from the subsistence economy to the market economy, they have shifted. Okay, or they have become as the service providers. Okay, and the lifestyle, or they are being converted. Okay, so some of the community or some of the person from the tribal community, they are totally or properly integrated with the mainstream society in the by the means of conversion, you can say, or voluntarily they have shifted their lifestyle, cultural lifestyle, social lifestyle, economic lifestyle to the mainstream lifestyle. Okay, so that is the one category who have properly integrated with the mainstream society. And the second category is the who have slightly integrated or loosely integrated with the tribal with the mainstream society. For example, only they have they have shifted their livelihood source to other sources, but not the cultural and social lifestyle. Okay, there are this category, or they have been converted, but the livelihood source is the traditional livelihood. Still, they are the forest dwellers, or they are the community who are depending on the forest for their livelihood. For example, the collectors, different forest product collectors, as we have seen that they're collecting the fruit, roots, leaf, or the or different kind of herbs, or honey, or they are collecting also the timbers. Okay, maybe non-timber product or the timbers. From those collected uh, things, they are getting their livelihood medium. For example, they will sell it away in the market and they will get some amount. Okay, so they are converted, but still they are continuing with their traditional livelihood sources. Okay, and another can be given, another example can be given, that they are converted to the another religion, but they are the community who are practicing the traditional livelihood source. For example, uh, artisan community. Okay, the bamboo basket makers, or the potterers, or the ornament makers, or you can say the painters. Okay, there are many communities who are depending or on this form of livelihood, that is art and craft. Okay, and there are other communities who are depending on the some kind of skills. Okay, for example, dancing. For example, some kind of magical practices, they will perform and they will get the money. We have seen the example like madaris, we have seen the examples like the snake charmers, we have seen the examples like the tattoo makers, we have seen the examples like the other communities who are getting their livelihood from these traditional skills. Okay, so partly they have integrated with the mainstream society. Okay, so livelihood is still that traditional livelihood, but maybe they have their religion, it has been changed. Okay, and third group is those who are untouched by the Hindu community, or by the mainstream caste society. Okay, example we can see, for example, in Odisha we have those pivotages. Okay, particularly vulnerable tribal communities. Okay, uh, communities or tribal groups. Okay, so because uh, because of their uh, that is you can say the social or the geographical condition or the demographic conditions, okay, still they are untouched, or there is a minimum kind of contact or interaction between the pvtcs and the mainstream societies. Okay, still they are inaccessible. Okay, that is one categories which are untouched by the Hindu communities. As the other tribal communities, they are residing nearby the caste society, or you can say the locality or the geographical habitation of these both tribal communities and the non-tribal community, those are same. So there must be a chances of interaction, but for the pvtgs, they still live in those inaccessible areas of forest or hill. Okay, so there is a less chance of interaction with the with those kind of tribal communities, with those extinct communities. Okay, so they are untouched. So according to these, according to G.S. Gure, there are three kind of tribal communities which are present. First is the community who are totally integrated with the Hindu society. Second is who are partially or loosely integrated with the Hindu society. And third is they are untouched by the Hindu society or the Hinduism. Okay, they are unaware about the presence of other communities, other non-tribal communities. Okay, that is the thing. And so the assimilation approach, which is proposed by this the like G.S. Gure, it is saying that if they are being properly assimilated uh, mm, with the mainstream society, that is the caste society, in the flow they will get developed as the other community, other non-tribal communities, caste community, they are developing, they are getting the fruits of development, or they are being covered with the other policies and programs. Definitely they will be also covered with those plans and policy. Okay, so this would be developed, or this should be integrated with the mainstream society. That And another point where Gure has said that there is a similarity between the tribal community and the non-tribal Hinduism is that on the basis of religion. Okay, uh, like because this tribal community in the different phases of census, they've expressed that they don't belong to the Hindu religion. Okay, and they have a different religion that is called animism. So there are, you may not find the clear cut distinction between that Hinduism and animism. Okay, so the officials who have done that census program, they have that faced lot many problems. Okay, how to differentiate between these two kind of religion practices? Okay, whom we will call as the Hindus and whom we will call as the person who are in practice of animism. Okay, so there is a demand for a separate not a separate religion, but this should be included as the Hindus. Okay, so this should be a part, this should be the part of mainstream religion. Okay, uh, so there should be another provision where they can express we belong to these religious categories. Okay, so there is another need for the integration of these tribal communities. Okay, as we firstly pointed that because they have to be in the part of mainstream society, and to get that developments benefit. And second was just to make the process smooth, they have to include it in the mainstream society. Okay, that is the thing. And yes, definitely this approaches or this approach of assimilation, it has also been um, criticized by the different scholars. Okay, so the criticisms are like that, you will see. As the Gure pointed that there are three categories. Okay, maybe they have been totally integrated with the tribal communities, with the non-tribal communities or the Hindu community, but on the part of tribal community, it is totally impossible to forget their uh, past life. It means prior to the integration. Okay, so for a person who have lived their life for centuries, to forget all those lives is impossible. Okay, so they cannot be totally integrated with the uh, mainstream society, or the assimilation with the mainstream society is not, it may not be a full-fledged procedure. Okay, the fruit may not be a successful kind of thing. Okay, so that is the first thing. So for example, they may not forget their traditional belief, they may not forget their cultural lifestyle, okay, their cuisine, their dressing patterns, uh, their language, or their traditional institutions, for example marriage patterns, for example the political institutions. Definitely it will be difficult, okay, to forget all those things. Okay, so uh, the total assimilation is difficult for those tribal communities. Okay, uh, and as we have seen that whenever there was a invasion in India, or there was some alien culture, or the you can say the other community who have tried to enter in our society, the classes was the must. Okay, so classes between two community, that was must. Okay, so whenever we are thinking about the integration between, or the assimilation between the non-tribals and tribals community, we have to be prepared with those kind of community classes. Okay, so there can be conflict between the or the situation where caste community and tribal community, they are in face to face on different kind of issues. For examples, the belief system, for examples based on the institutions. Okay, so opinion differences will be there, or differences will be on the many parameters. Okay, and definitely classes will be there. Okay, as we will say that this tribal community, uh, easily they don't give off on their culture or the tradition or their social life. Sometimes these kind of social life or cultural lives are not accepted by the caste community or the Hindu communities. Okay, for example, as we have seen that, mm, that animism. Okay, so in Hindu community, or the belief of Hinduism is to protect the life in any form, that is on the base of maybe it can be the tree, it can be the animal, or in any form, it is to protect the life. But in the part of tribal community, animal sacrifices that in the religion context. Okay, so there is a two different kind of belief system is there. Okay, how there will be a conclusion. Okay, and another thing, the approach or the perspective we have discussed in our last class, that was uh, the stratification approach. Okay, we have already pointed that traditional Hindu society, or the Hindu society, is based on the caste structure. Okay, and which is hierarchically arranged. Okay, so the different segments or the different groups of Hindu society, a community of Hindu society, they will be placed in a hierarchical position. But in a tribal society, or in those tribal community, you may not find that hierarchical position or hierarchical ordering. Okay, they believe on more the equality and egalitarianism. Okay, so the socio-economic structure, or the culture and the value system, that is completely different from the Hindu community, or you can say the caste community, and the tribal communities. Okay, so there will be serious consequences which will be coming out. Yes, we have also seen many instances like that. Like there are some controversial issues. Like we have seen the instances like um, killing on the or the communal riot based on conversion. Okay, in the different parts of our Odisha, like in um, Keunjhar and in the Kalahandi, we have seen. Okay, some in Lakshmanananda Saraswati's case or the Dara Singh's case. Okay, so there can be such kind of extreme situation if we are trying to assimilate or integrate the this community, forceful assimilation of this community, okay, to the mainstream community. That is the main, some of the criticisms of the assimilation process or the assimilation approach of development. Okay, so and some one major point has to be remembered that as we have seen that there are some similarities in the caste communities. Okay, maybe we follow single religion, for example Hinduism, Christianism, or Jainism, or Islamism. Okay, Islamic religion. So all these um, uh, principle of this religion, the larger section they are following. Okay, Hinduism maybe that uh, the people who are in belief of that you will find some commonalities. Okay, but for the tribal communities, you may not find that all tribal communities will follow same kind of religion, same kind of religious belief system will be there. Okay, as many as the tribal communities or the tribal groups you are finding, they may have the different religious belief system. Okay, some common principles you may find, but there cannot be a homogeneous homogeneous kind of belief system. Okay, so that is the thing where there should be a differentiation among those between those two communities. Okay, and next thing is that as, as we have expressed that this assimilation purpose, it should be for the approach, it should be for the development. Okay, so a single or the one policy or the one plan which has been developed keeping in view the particular community, it may not be applicable to all the communities which are present in there. Okay, should you should develop a different approach or a different plan for the different kind of communities. As we have seen that in a development and planning perspective, so these community they need a different plan. Okay, so definitely we have seen the different approach, like we are framing for them as the tribal sub plans. Okay, we are earmarking some amount in our budget for those tribal community because we know that this society is different and they need a different care. Okay, so it cannot be so everyone cannot be addressed in a single policy or single program. Okay, there should be a different provision for the different categories as the demanded are emerging, or as the demands are emerging, or as the needs are emerging. On that basis we will develop the different policies and program. So for that purpose or for that cause, assimilation is not a solution for the development of those community, tribal communities. Okay, so that is another point in the developmental approach. Okay, so next approach of development is that is the policy of integration. Okay, so we have seen the assimilation where we seek that these communities should be totally assimilated with the Hindu community or the mainstream society. And another approach is that is the policy of integration. Okay, so policy of integration, mainly it has been followed or mainly it has been advocated after independence. Okay, so as we seen that national park concept of Elwin was severely criticized by the Gure. And next we are proposing the integration approach, that is the Nehruvian approach for the tribal development in the post independent era. Here there is also a presence of Elwin principles. Okay, so the modified Elwin principles are present in the post independence era. Okay, so as we have seen that in the isolation approach, we have seen that they're more concerned that for the development of tribal community, they should be kept isolated. Okay, for in a post-independent era, we are more concerned about the overall development of the tribal community. Okay, so and we have framed many committees or many groups which were being solely assigned to think of the uh, tribal development as a whole. Okay, so for example, in 1935, okay, colonial state uh, formed the model for independent India. It was widely accepted that Constituent Assembly debate were, it was mainly the which committee they were established in the post-independent era. Some of the principles of British India we have accepted. Okay, so the in 1935, the Constituent Assembly which were framed, large part of the principle we have borrowed or we have taken from the Britishers. Okay, so you will see, still we are continuing with those kind of principles, or you can say the conception of the tribal community or the needs of tribal community. We are measuring or we are evaluating on the pre-decided parameters. Okay, still we are means means the non-tribal community. We are proposing developmental policies and program for the tribal communities. Okay, till now we didn't feel the significance of the present of those tribal community, the member of those tribal community, or we didn't feel that tribal community are able to think of their development by themselves. Okay, so we have ignored their potential. Okay, so we have differently framed the approaches for the development of those tribal communities. Okay, so there are some kind of examples are there how post independent India it has framed many communities, many committees for the development of tribal communities. Okay, like you will see uh, the group which were represented by the Sri Biswanath. The point they have made that we want that scheduled tribe in the whole country should be protected from the destructive impact of races possessing a higher and more aggressive culture, and should be encouraged to develop their own autonomous life. Okay, so as we have in the assimilation approach, we have said that there should be more, uh, the whole assimilation should be there. Okay, so this community they're scared about that aggressive kind of interaction. Okay, as we have said that the non-tribal communities livelihood practices, these are more exploitative, you can say. Okay, or it is for the market, or it is for the uh, mm, for the it is running in the ethos of capitalism. Okay, we are not thinking of the sustainability. Okay, so these as the tribal community, they are still in the subsistence economy. So the impact of their economic practice is less harmful than the non-tribal communities economic practice. Simple example, same thing, the agriculture. Okay, so that is more of a kind, you will say, they will have a they will think of a sustainable form of economic system than the market oriented economic system. Okay, so one, there are some exceptions are there, like the shifting cultivations. Okay, that is we have you have heard the town Poduchasa. Okay, slosh and burn agricultures. Okay, these are certain kind of exceptions are there, but they are being replaced with other form of agricultures. Okay, still they are protecting their lands. Okay, slash and burn, not for the market, not for the maximum surplus, slash and burn for their sustenance. Okay, and they will give the ample time to that to the nature for healing. Okay, slash and burn in a one season or two, twice in a season. Okay, not more than that. Okay, and they will definitely take care of the healing process. Okay, so the agriculture, the economic practices, the social practices, and the cultural practice of the tribal communities, those are not, these are not aggressives. Okay, there is a more primitive or the native kind of process you will find. These are more smooth. Okay, which is not a destructive practices for the environment or for the society. Okay, so so the Biswanath, they have presented that there should be less interaction, or the impact of this non-tribal communities culture should not be uh, uh, much should not be there. Okay, the restriction should be there, and the life should be led by the tribal community by themselves. There should not be zero imposes, there should be zero imposition. Okay, there should not be any kind of imposition on them. Yes, your cultural life should be upgraded, your economic life should be this, your political life should be this. Okay, that kind of imposition should not be there. Okay, if we are imposing or we are suggesting, definitely uh, we are tampering their social or cultural lives. The originality of their social cultural life will be at risk. Their identity is at risk. Okay, so another committee, you will say that we will see uh, in 1960 Devar committee was constituted. Uh, uh, Definitely it was with the direction of the then prime minister, it was Jawaharlal Nehru. So that committee was, or the commission was headed by the UN Devar, in which was formed in 1960. Okay, uh, they have opened that uh, in the process of integration, hala, the tribal community should not be disturbed, the harmony of tribal life should not be disturbed. Simultaneously, it works for the advancement, not to impose anything upon the tribals, and there should be a integration as a member or the part of Indian family. Okay, so the integration process should take a time. There should not be which is called as the um, radical integration. Okay, uh, in 1 day or 2 day or within a particular period, said particular period of time, they have to be integrated with the non-tribal community or mainstream society. The time frame should not be there. The process will take its own time. Okay, so uh, and after when Nehru had visited to Northeast India, you will see uh, their economic life is different than the mainland India. Okay, so definitely the changes on their livelihood pattern, it will come. Okay, or there will be the modern form of livelihood pattern, but it should be proposed by them. The livelihood source or the alternate livelihood sources, it should not be imposed on them. Okay, so there are many committee which were framed or which were formed after independence, just to find out what the tribal community need and how the development will be uh, uh, it will reach to them. Okay, so and after combining all those principles or all those suggestions, okay, so Nehru has pointed the Panchal Niti. Okay, and the five principles of that principle is people should develop along the lines of their own genius, and we should avoid the imposing anything on them. Okay, we should try to encourage in every way their own traditional art and culture. Okay, so as we have said that they will take their own life own time for the integration. There should not be any kind of impositions. Okay, and their art and culture, it should not be which is it should not be judged. Okay, so we should value their art and cultures or their value systems. Okay, and as we have mentioned that in the policy of isolation, their rights on land and forest, it was snatched away. In Panchal Niti, it is ensuring that there should be a right on land and forest, and it should be respected. Okay, as we have seen that they don't have those mm, uh, private ownership on the land. They may not have those legal documents of land ownership, but we should honor their communal ownership of forest and lands. Okay, we'll see because they are called as the original inhabitant of those localities. Okay, prior to the presence of the present community, okay, those communities are present or were present in those locality. So the first right should be there on the land or on the forest. Okay, and the third principle of this Panchal Niti is we should try to train and build up a team of their own people to do the work of administration and development. Okay, like through those protective policies and different kind of uh, constitutional safeguards, we should try to skill them. Okay, like educate them, train them for the different other form of livelihood. Okay, or we should train them with other form of political lives. Okay, but we should not impose on them. It is the training should be or the awareness process should be for the management of their community or for the administration of their community itself. Okay, uh, for example, some person which will go to there and which it will he will make them learn about the different livelihood skills. Okay, give them the skill of animal husbandry, give them the skills of fishery, give them the skills of other livelihood sources, tailoring, or any other forms of livelihood sources which are not their livelihood sources. Okay, which is based on the forest. Okay. and uh, uh, and another thing was which is mentioned in that third principle was there should not be too much of uh, mm, outside many informations or the persons from the outside of those tribal communities. Okay, so in those territory few non-tribals should be there, and those are definitely the persons who are in the position of trainers. Okay, that many minimum or that many persons should be there, but not the maximum more persons who will uh, populate that locality and who will disturb their life. Okay, that is the third principle of functionality. And the fourth is that we should not over administer these areas or overwhelm them with the multiplicity of schemes. Okay, we should rather work through and not in rivalry to their social and cultural institution. It means, like we have said that we should train them with the political uh, culture. Okay, like what are the different constitutional rights are there, constitutional safeguards are there for them. The person will go and uh, make them aware about those things. Or what are the bureaucratic system which is present in India, and how they will get different benefit from those bureaucratic systems or the government mechanism. Okay, so trainers should be there, but we cannot make them or force them. You should of these mechanism, or you should use this mechanism to get these kind of benefits. We cannot impose on them. Okay, like you cannot say them, be the part of this electoral process, be the part of that bureaucratic systems, take the advantage of this government mechanism. You cannot impose them. Okay, the choice should be with them. Okay, these are the things which are available, and the choice should be left with them if they want or not. Okay, and for example, there are many superstitious beliefs are there, because we know that these are the community or a society which are of pre-modern era. Okay, that definitely uh, some common sense beliefs will be the superstitious belief in the those community. Okay, but those changes should be coming in a gradual process. It should not be banned in those localities. Okay, so the change will come gradually. We have to train the personnel, and the person from that community they will bring the change. If the outsider impositions or outsider that is instruction is there, maybe we will face the agitations or different kind of protest we will find. Okay, so and the fifth principle is that we should judge the result not by the statistics of amount of money spent, or the rather the like the quantitative measurement should not be there. Okay, it means how much we have spent and what is the result. The result should be the qualitative. Okay, it means how the quality life has increased, the community life has increased, and the quality should be mentioned by the person itself. They should say that yes, this is the quality and it has raised. Okay, we cannot impose that the like for example mm, you cannot say that the per capita income in your locality it has increased means your livelihood, your life standard has increased. Okay, maybe for example they are the community displaced community, and they are the workers in many sites, working sites, like the common, like the industrial sites or the construction site, definitely the result will be increase in their per capita income. But their socio-cultural life, it is at risk. So we cannot say that because the per capita income has increased, so their life standard has increased. So the person itself, it has to, they have to confess that yes, the life standard has increased. Okay, so these are the certain principle which were advocated by the Nehru, and wherever Elwin, he has also contributed in the framing of these uh, principles. But there are some criticisms where are there to this integration process. Ajay said that uh, like training of the personnel or making available of different alternate source of livelihood, like we have in that period, a post independent period, you have noticed that many dam projects, those were started in that decade. Okay, but the result of those dam projects was the displacement, total uproot of those community tribal community. Okay, so they have totally been swept away by those dam projects. Okay, so there are some other criticisms are there, like the you can say how you will manage those tribal persons who are those persons who are going to give the training to those localities. Okay, how you will select. Okay, so and prior to that, the basic difficulties are to generalize the tribal communities. Okay, these are the certain pre challenges are there prior to implementation of that integration approach, and some new challenges which are came mm, after the implementation of this Panchashil Niti. Okay, so mm, in conclusion, you will say the policy of isolation, it was criticized by the policy of assimilation, which is also which has also result different tribal movements. Okay, the shortcomings of the policy of isolation and policy of assimilation, uh, it was noticed by the policymaker of independent India, and mm, they have tried to implement that policy of integration. Okay, and the policy of integration, unlike those, that two policy, that is policy of isolation and policy of assimilation, focuses on the integration of the tribe with the larger section of the society in the process of development. Okay, uh, and as we have discussed that the policy of integration, it has failed to meet the objectives which were set. Okay, and it was resulted like mm, risk of tribal identity. Okay, and still that exploitation, indebtedness, and development induced displacement, land alienation, those are still continued. There was zero addition to the, or you can say very few minimum changes were there in this issue. Okay, so as the result, tribes still continue to face those socioeconomic deprivation, and in recent times you will see more movements, they are coming on the base of the identity, like recently we have seen that Manipur incident. Okay, which was, yes, based on that identity crisis, okay, between two tribal communities, okay, based on identity, and second is the livelihood, as we have seen in the Niyamgiri movement. Okay, so on that moment, the livelihood is at risk. Okay, and definitely that livelihood is leading to that identity. So they have raised their voice against those kind of forceful imposition of different other form of livelihood. Okay. And they demanded for the uninterrupted situation or uninterrupted life in their natural habitation. Okay. So their life should not be interfered by the other non-tribal personnel. Okay, the disturbance should be zero. Okay, so in the process of the understanding the tribal development uh, approaches, you will see in the context of isolation, assimilation, and integration that define the relationship of tribes with the respect to the state and various points of at various points of time. So in these three approaches, how there is in various times, what are the form of interaction between these two state and the different tribal groups. Okay, and at last you can say that there is a continuing phase of neglect where the tribes benefited from the reservation and other policies have questioned and stressed a revolt against the state. It means, though we are providing different form of protection to the tribal communities. It may be through the constitutional regrets, or through different kind of subplans, or through different kind of separate policies and programs for them. Still, we failed. Okay, and the tribal movements are still uh, it is raising. Okay, or it is found in different states or different localities. It's still we are in a feeling situation. So in the third unit we have majorly covered what are the major uh, approaches of tribal development, and what are their major principles are there, and how they have been criticized, and at last what is the present situation is there. Okay, so in fourth unit, we will cover, as in our first two units, we have tried to define the tribal communities. Who are the tribes? Okay, and when we are studying the tribal communities in tribal studies, what are the different uh, perspectives are there? Like we have discussed the 12 uh, perspectives to studies the tribal communities, and what are the major characteristics of tribal studies we have covered, and somehow we have tried to understand whom we are calling as a tribe. Okay, and we have we have till understood that in India these communities are called as the scheduled tribe. Okay, so in India we use the term uh, tribe and scheduled tribe alternately for these communities. Okay, in fourth unit, another concept it is going to be discussed, that is the indigeneity or the indigenous entity. Okay, as in our previous class, we have said that the recent most accepted term is the tribe or scheduled tribe in India. But now another term it is in a mane, hot debate, that is the indigenous people. Okay, so you will see in many literature it has been interchangeably used. or we say the both the term tribe and indigenous people. Okay, so what is the genesis or trajectory of this concept we will discuss in this unit. Okay, so first of all, uh, mm, in international scenario, you will say uh, we have those community, they have been like we have identified them, or the characteristics of those communities were like they are definitely their experiences are discrimination, dispositions, or marginalization and subjugations. Okay, so it is not the case of India only. In all over the world, or the in international scenario, you will see these kind of this kind of processes are going on. Okay, so in every part of the world, tribes or the indigenous people, they are experiencing that same situation. It means you can say that discrimination in state word, you will say they are positive discrimination, we say. Okay, like we are different policies and programs, or separate policies and programs earmarked budget for those community, we are discriminating, or the other peoples they are discriminated, or we are differentiating between two groups. Okay, so and the logic behind is that, or the logic or the rationality they give is that it is the positive discrimination. Okay, so maybe the positive discrimination or the negative discrimination, as the non-tribal society, it has tried to live, okay, with the tribal community, the experience is same. Uh, we are feeling that, or the tribal community, they are not, they are feeling that they are different from the other group, they are not same with the other group, socioculturally, economically, politically, etc., etc. They are not same with the other group, and the different other policies and developmental policies and programs, it is not equally distributed with them. Okay, so that kind of discriminatory life they are living, not only in India but in all over the world. Okay, so that discrimination and marginalizations in all the situation, through different kind of process, they are being marginalized. Okay, so gradually they are being sided to a particular corner. Okay, and uh, so there is a aspiration of many marginalized community, where they should be present, they should be properly present or represented in different forums. Okay, uh, so going to the how different criteria we have set to define this community, like in many situations, like from the very beginning we have said that these are the communities who are poorest of the poor. Okay, or mm, these are the community who are more native kind of people, or these are the community who are from the very uh, isolated place of the society. Okay, various attempt has been given to define these communities. Okay, and in the international scenario, you will see the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. In its preamble, it has pointed out that there is a need to take there is a need to take into consideration the existing national and regional particularities while defining the concept of indigenous people. Okay, as we have seen that the situations of tribal communities, it is different in different localities. Okay, but all the communities we have defined them as a tribal communities. Okay, or you can say the situation of tribal communities in India, it is different from the situation of tribal communities in Africa or in any eastern countries like China or any other countries. Okay, so you cannot generalize the definition for all the societies. Okay, so the definition of tribal community should be contextualized. It means there should be a definition based on the local experience. Okay, like the preamble mentioned that national and regional particularities should be included while defining the concept of indigenous people. Okay, so the etymological meaning of indigenous is that the native, who belong to the soil. It means those whose ancestors were the original inhabitant of the land and later colonized or settled by the others. Okay, indigenous means the native people who are living in those locality, and uh, and after uh, after their presence, other communities or other groups, they have tried to make the settlement in those areas. Okay, so the dominant issue of the indigenousness, it is revolves around the fact that who came the first or who occupied that area or that territory the first. Okay, you will see, for example, in India. Okay, so prior to the Britishers, there were many invaders were there. Okay, and we come we come to conclusion that the people who were present prior to the invasion of Aryans may be called as the indigenous peoples. Okay, yes, another distinction is, or another difference is there. In northeastern region, you will find after the advent of this Aryan, northeastern, for example, the Nagas, they have come to the India. Okay, so there is a variations. So it has mentioned that the national and regional particularities should be included whenever you are defining the tribal communities. Okay, so it has been defined indigenous peoples are the people or the social group with a social and cultural identity distinct from the dominant society, and that makes them vulnerable to being disadvantaged in the development process. Okay, so we have seen that as from the very beginning we have discussed that this tribal community, they have a distinct culture or distinct lifestyle. For example, we have given that language, okay, food habit, dress patterns, etc. Okay, which are not similar with the mainstream society. Okay, uh, and these distinctions, it is making them more vulnerable. Okay, like we discussed that they are separate from the mainstream society. They are not like with us, or this community, they are not like with the mainstream people, mainstream group. Okay, so definitely they will be in the process of you will say in a in the process of more marginalized. Okay, or disadvantaged group they will be. Okay, for example, whenever we are planning something and in a grassroots level, at the situation of delivery of those plans, okay, the natural instinct of non-tribal people or the any individual will be, yes, two different communities are present there. Okay, may not be that person may not understand the situation of that person, other person who is not like that. Okay, so that kind of situation, so that process, that different culture, different customs, or the different lifestyles, though it is a unique kind of lifestyle, but sometimes that differentiation or that uniqueness, it is making them more vulnerable or more disadvantaged. Okay, so indigenous people are the poorest segment of the society, as repeatedly we are discussing, whose economic activities range from the shifting cultivation or the shifting agriculture in a near forest, or to wage laborer, or even small scale market oriented activities. Okay, so as we mentioned that the culture and the lifestyle is distinct, and their economic life, it is definitely their life economic practices are uh, of the poorest forced community. Okay, so as we are discussing, their economic life, which will it will be revolving around the shifting cultivations in and around the near locality of forest, and they will definitely like if the non availability of those areas or those forest land, in those non availability, they will go to the industrial area or any sites where they can labor, okay, or give their labor to earn something. है ना? So you will see different national and international institutions and organizations, they have developed their own understanding of the concept of indigeneity, okay, or indigenous people in their own respective context. uh, like from the very beginning we of this unit we are saying that you have to recognize the that is regional differentiation whenever you are defining those communities. Okay, what are the different uh, characteristics which are present in different localities or region, that should be mentioned, or that should be uh, considered whenever you are defining the people of those localities. Okay. In United Nation system body, you will see they have the term. It term has been accepted like the communities should identify themselves, means self identification as a indigenous people at the individual level, and that self identification should be accepted by the other peoples, which means the community level acceptance should be there. Okay, or the other community member, they should accept them as a indigenous people. Okay, the person whoever is identifying herself or himself as indigenous people, the other member should accept him or her as the indigenous people, means that self identification should be accepted by the community members. And historical continuity with the pre-colonial societies should be there. It means as we mentioned that this should be the native of that native persons or the native people of that locality. their ancestors should be present in that locality prior to the establishment of colonies or during the pre-colonial periods. Okay, uh, we have seen that in international body they have tried to adopt two kind of definition. One is the working definitions, okay, or whichever you were which you can say. uh, Another is the operational definitions. uh, Working definitions, it can be you can say that indigenous population are composed of existing descendants of the people who inhabited the present territory of a country wholly or partially at the time when person of different culture or ethnic origin arrived there from other part of the world. Okay, overcome them or by conquest, settlement or other means reduce them to be the non-dominant or colonial in a colonial condition, who today live more in conformity with their particular social, economic and cultural customs and tradition than the institutions of the community of the whole, okay, which where they are living. Okay, so the working definition says uh, the indigenous people, they are the people who are the inhabitant of the uh, present locality prior to the establishment of colonies, or you can say the people who are residing in this locality, they are the descendant of those communities or those people people. Okay, and the the present inhabitants who are present in that locality, okay, they have come to that locality uh, through different mode, like who have, some of them have come for the trade purpose, some of them have come for the other purpose, like to conquer that localities. Okay, and by the different means they have tried to dominate over that those traditional inhabitants of that localities. Okay, and uh, gradually they have lost their traditional culture and um, traditional cultures and lifestyle, and they're just living in that dominated society, okay, with their different culture and society. Prior to that conquer or prior to that establishment of colonies, okay, they were, their culture and their lifestyle were the dominant lifestyle. Okay, after the establishment of that colonies, so that ancestors culture, it has become or it has been dominated. Okay, so the person who have dominated that locality, their culture and their lifestyle is prevailing. Okay, so the ancestral culture, it is living with a different identity. Okay, so there are some other operational definitions are there. You can say so. UN state defines indigenous communities. The people and the nations are those which having a historical continuity with pre-invasion and pre-colonial societies that developed on their territories, consider themselves distinct from the other sections of the countries now prevailing in those territories or parts of them. They form at present non-dominant sectors of the society and are determined to preserve, develop, transmit to future generation their ancestral territories and their ethnic identity as the basis of their continuous existence as people in accordance with their own cultural pattern, social institutions, and legal systems. Okay, so you will say another definitions of UN working group, which was headed by Erika Irendes. Okay, so it defines indigenous people on different features. Okay, first feature is that because they are descendant of groups which were the territory of the country at the time when they are groups in the different cultures and ethnic origin which have arrived. Okay, and they are indigenous because of their isolation from other segments of the country's population. They have preserved almost intact the custom and traditions of their ancestor, which are similar to those characterized as the indigenous. Okay, because they are isolated, or they are their group or their segment is isolated from the present country's population, and they have tried to preserve their ancestors culture, okay, intact, and uh, that culture can be termed as the or it is they carry the characteristics of the indigenous people, so that group may be termed as the indigenous people. Okay, another point is that, or another parameter features is that, basing on which they are identifying the different communities as indigenous, it is because they are, even if only formal, placed under a state structure which incorporate national, social, and cultural characteristics alien to theirs. Okay, so sometimes they are present in that state because they are the part of that political scenario, or you can say, or the political structures. Okay, and sometimes they have to imbibe the or incorporate the national cultures. For example, we say we can say as the citizenship, they have to accept a particular state citizenship because they are in the political boundary of a particular state. And the next characteristics uh, next parameters, you can say, because these community, how you will define them as a indigenous community, they have to be they has to identify themselves as a indigenous people at the different individual level and accepted by the community as their members. Okay, as when how it has declared that. Okay, so self identification as the indigenous people at the individual level, which should be accepted by the community as their member. Okay, and another feature is that the historical continuity with the pre-colonial or the settlers society. Okay, it means the community who are present in that uh, locality, that community's history should be linked with the pre-colonial people's history. Okay, it means they should be the ancestors of the pre-colonials peoples. Okay, or the pre-colonial people should be the ancestors of the present indigenous people. So there should be a historical connection between the people who were present by the time when that land was dominated by the other culture, other outsider individuals. Okay, and there should be a strong link to the territories and the surrounding natural resources. Yes, definitely we have mentioned that if you snatch away the locality and the natural surroundings of that individual, of those tribal communities, definitely they will die. Their identity will be at risk. So there are strong link between or with the natural surrounding of that individual people, as we have already discussed, that the culture, the economy, or the social life, they all are revolving around with that natural resources. Okay, for example, we said that the religion, without the forest, they may not practice that religion, animism. Okay, for example, now there is a movement to include Sarna as a different religion. Okay, so which is the without forest, that Sarna religion may not be in existence. Okay, and without that religion, their identity will be at risk, because from that religious uh, tale, or you can say the folklores, they try to trace their identity from where they have come. Yes, they trace their identity to different kind of common ancestors, like the tree, or you can say the wildlife or wild animals. Okay, so there is a strong link between or with the natural surroundings of those tribal communities. Okay, so whichever is the community which is trying to identify them as a indigenous people, they should have a strong link with the natural surroundings. Okay, and next feature is that sorry, the community should have a distinct social, economic, and political system. Okay, as we have already mentioned that every tribal community, they have a different social system, economic system, and political system. Okay, so we have seen that in India, you can see that the tribal community, it may be, they can be categorized on the basis of the livelihood. Okay, some of the community, they are the for hunting gatherers. Some of the community, they belong to the artisan community. Some of the community, they are the permanent agriculturalist. Okay, you will find uh, a group of tribal community in these categories. Okay, for example, Kisan in Odisha, or Todas in South India. Okay, definitely they have a some kind of similar kind of livelihood system, like pasturing or animal husbandry, but these two community are different from each other. Okay, or you have seen that artisan communities, mahalis in Odisha, or mm, or any other bamboo basket makers in Northeast. Okay, though their livelihood source is same, but their community life is different, totally different from one another. Okay, so that kind of distinction should be there. And political life, political system, we have already mentioned that they have a different political system within their own society. Okay, and every society must have a distinct language, culture, and belief system. So we have seen that uh, in Odisha, you have seen that if it is 64 types of tribal community, two have been added. uh, they may come under different linguistic family, but local dialect may be different from one to another. Okay, so that should be there, and they should not be from the non-dominant. They should be from the non-dominant group of society, and should not be from the dominant group of society. Okay, they should resolve to maintain and produce their ancestral environment system, distinct people and community. Okay, there should be interest of those community to protect or reproduce that traditional or ancestral environment in that localities. Okay, so you will see there are many international organizations or international bodies are there who have tried to define indigenous communities. Okay, so we will try to cover some of those international bodies. First is that ILO, okay, international level organization, you will say. The convention of ILO 169 convention, ILO, it has tried to define indigenous people uh, on account of their descent from the population which inhabited the country or a geographical region to which the country belongs at the time of conquest or colonization or the establishment of the present state boundaries, and who, irrespective of their legal status, retain some or all of their own social, economic, cultural, and political institutions. Okay, so we have tried to the or ILO. It has tried to identify the indigenous community on. You can say there are certain objectives are there on which it has tried to identify the indigenous community. Okay, and another international body you have heard, that is the World Bank. Okay, so the World Bank's definitions, you will see uh, the interaction with the indigenous people or with the World Bank is not in a positive signs, you can say. Okay, because we have seen that uh, many pre-colonial or colonial policies which were the projects which were backed with the World Bank, okay, they are not, they're not produced that positive environment for the indigenous people. Okay, so they have a serious negative social and cultural impact which has inflicted upon the indigenous communities. Okay, so most of the World Bank projects did not involve the indigenous community in the formulation as well as the implementation of the project. Okay, as we have mentioned that um, we have ignored their potentiality. Okay, so till now we means non-tribals, we are trying to impose the policies and programs on them. Okay, so mm, definitely, unlike those other international institutions, World Bank has also uh, tried to impose the policies and programs or the projects for the tribal community without consulting those tribal community. There is a zero presence of uh, tribal members in the policy formation or the implementation. Okay, so so World Bank has totally ignored uh, that that fact or that thing. The engagement between the World Bank and the indigenous people, it has the first time it was happened in 1986. 1987, at the time when the new World Bank president Barbara Kanabel had finally admitted that many of its own projects, had resulted in negative impact on indigenous people and their environment. Okay, so the World Bank recognized the vulnerabilities and risks that indigenous people encounter in development interventions. Okay, so from that point, after 1987, it has tried to develop safeguard policies to ensure that the development project, it should supports the indigenous people, or it should try to it should not have a negative impact on the indigenous people. Okay, so those are the things it has tried to implement. Okay, so and ILO's intervention, you will see in its first uh, in different convention, it has tried to define the indigenous people, uh, like in according to article 1A of ILO convention. It has said population with social and economic condition are at less advanced stage than the stage reached by the other section of the national community, and those status is regulated wholly or partially by the other customs or by special laws and regulations. And Article 1B, it says that members of tribal and semi-tribal population in independent countries which are regarded as the indigenous on account of their descent from the population which inhabited the country or geographical region to which the country belong at the time of conquest of colonization, and which respective irrespective of their legal status live more in the conformity with the social, economic, cultural and institution of that time with the institution of the nation which they belong. Okay, so the major institutions, international institutions or organizations, they they have tried to identify indigenous community basically on two or three points. The first point is that they should have a historical link with that locality. They should be the original inhabitant of that locality. It means prior to the establishment of colonies or whoever the other community who have come to that locality, prior to that, that community should be present there. And second is that they should have a distinct culture, customs, dialect, political life, etc. Okay, and third is that uh, they themselves should identify them as an indigenous people. Okay, from the very beginning we are saying that they are the poorest of the poor, they are the down from the downtrodden part of the society or from lower segment of the society. Arbitrarily we cannot impose any of the group from that downtrodden section as the indigenous people. The group, they should themselves identify them as the indigenous communities. Okay, so these are the point where from where the community the uh, different international organization, they have tried to identify or recognize the indigenous people. Okay, so United Nation has its large interaction with the indigenous people. Okay, mhm, there are many conventions and many declarations on human rights are there. in which the protection of individual rights are also included. Okay, so the major turning point which was emerged in 1970s were when human rights subcommission on prevention of discrimination and protection of minorities emphasized the need of detailed study on the discrimination of indigenous people by appointing Martis and Kav as the special rapporteur to conduct a board study on the problem of discrimination against the indigenous people. From there, they have tried to investigate separately, specially for the indigenous right. Okay, so human rights and indigenous human rights. So how what should be the differentiation? Okay, how different it can be. So from 1970 it has started. Okay, so you will say there are some the these conventions or these declarations, they have based on certain kind of point. Okay, okay. Indigenous people, they should have a right to be protected from the genocide. Okay, after the study of this committee, okay, or this group, you will see what can be the right of indigenous people. So they have, the draft says that they should be protected from the genocide, maintain their distinct ethnic and cultural identity, use their own language in any situation, and own and control their traditional, and be consulted on development project affecting them. Okay, so from that UN human right declaration in 1970, we have thought of a different right over different kind of projects, or we should recognize their presence in the policy framing. Okay, or they should participate on equal foot, there should be participation of equal footing in political, economic, and social and cultural life. Okay, they should be given same opportunities as other communities are getting in different platform in politics, economy, and society, and in culture. Okay, so there should have a equal footing on the on these areas. Okay, so another some important points has to be remembered that uh, UN has declared 1993 as the International Year of World Indigenous People. Okay, in this year, it has tried to stress on participation of indigenous people in the planning, implementation, and evaluation of projects affecting their future and living condition. Knowledge about the international standards developed over the past several decades by the UN bodies for protecting the rights of indigenous people, and it has tried to make public awareness of situation of the indigenous people and the threats to their existence through special observance meeting and other promotional and cultural activity as well as the media coverage. Okay, so in December in 21st December 1993, it has also proclaimed that International Decade of World Indigenous People should be from 1994 to 2004. Okay, so that decade was declared as the Indigenous World People. That decade, that one decade. Okay, so in 1993, it was the year International Year of World Indigenous People, and the decade is 1994 to 2004. Okay, so UN has been associated with uh, defining or recognizing the rights of indigenous people in various way. Okay, so in Indian context, you will see there are two two sections of people, you can say, who are in favor of identifying tribal community as an indigenous people, and some are the groups who are arguing against the identifying that community as the indigenous people. Okay, as you will see that Virginius Kaka, okay, or Ramdal Munda, okay, they have given some points where these people can be termed as the indigenous people. Okay, like Ramdal Munda, uh, the president of Indian Council of Indigenous and Tribal People, considered in the forum of UN and all the tribal communities of India as a whole are indigenous. Okay, where he stated that in the Indian context, unless definitionally specified, everyone could be called as the indigenous people. Okay, because as we said that there is a variations. Okay, the constitution itself, it has not defined whom to call as the scheduled right. Okay, you cannot find the parameters based on which they have been scheduled. So the office, president office, it will declare or it may denotify. Okay, so in India, lack of those common parameters, it can lead to term them as everyone as the indigenous communities. Okay, and like the point we are saying that marginalization and discrimination, that can be from any group. Okay, so everyone can be termed as the indigenous people. Okay, so Virginius Kaka in 1999, he argues that the root cause of tribals' demand for the indigenous people status is their complete loss of power over natural resources. Okay, the demand is based on the extreme discrimination faced by the tribal communities and their many experiences of dispositions by the dominant groups. Okay, so there are many scholars who have argued that indigenous people should be tribal peoples of India. They should be termed as the indigenous people as the international flow it is coming, so they can get uh, the maximum benefits. Okay, and there are other groups who are terming or who are against the that uh, that designation of indigeneity, that is mm, you have seen that in Nehruvian policy we have in the first decade of independence, which were severely criticized, like that administration of the northern eastern tribal was not satisfactory, and that was too much focus on the political and administrative development was there, while economic development of tribals was ignored. Okay, so the Panchashil was in disagreement with the policy of industrialization for the rest of India, since tribals area are also most resource rich area. The process of industrialization was present with the regard to tribal rights on lands and waters. Okay, so the Nehruvian policies, Panchashil policies, it could not retain that inclusive ethos or inclusive zeal. Most of the development program induced the displacement. Okay, so and in another context, you will say that Kaka itself acknowledged the concept as that there are differences are there. Okay, from the points or the from the parameters on based on which tribes in other countries of world they have been recognized as the indigenous peoples. In India, that scenario is different. The Indian experience is different from that of a new world where it was marked by conquest, subjugation, even discrimination. Okay, people in India, all the tribal community cannot be considered as indigenous people because there are tribes in India, especially in the northeast. Whole settlement in the countries they are inhabited today is even later the phenomenon, as we have said, that they have the Nagas who have come to India after Aryan invasion. The point where we are saying that the people who should have a ancestral history in that particular locality, they can be termed as indigenous. But in India, like the examples of Naga, they have come to India after the Aryans. Okay, we are also terming these as a tribal communities. Okay, so there are many debates are there how different organizations or international institutions they are conceptualizing the tribes, and on which basis they are criteria they are uh, characterizing the uh, tribal communities. Okay, so in our next class we will start the block 2 and block 3. Okay, so for today we are closing here. Thank you all. Good night.